Good evening. I would like to welcome everybody to the December 2025 Additional Boundary Options Public Information Meeting for the opening of Crown High School and the expansion of Damascus High School. My name is Adnan Mamoon. I'm the Chief Operations Officer for Montgomery County Public Schools. I would like to welcome everybody and thank everybody for joining us tonight. We are going to go over the additional options, and then we will go over the resources that's available for everybody online to take a look at the maps, which we also have available in the cafeteria area. And we'll try to make this presentation fairly short tonight so that we have the time for everybody to go over to the map section to look at the high school as well as the middle school maps. And we will have folks at these tables to try and answer your questions. We will not be taking live questions here because we're trying to keep the presentation short and share the information as much as possible so you know where the resources are. And then, if you have questions, we'll be happy to, meet you after the presentation. So we have two presentations tonight, one starting right now, and then there will be another presentation at 7:30. And then the resources we will share, you can, again, look at it on your phone, on your computer. You're going to be able to look up your address and see what changes happens due to the different options that are being presented tonight. And more importantly, we're going to have resources for you to go and look at the survey that's going to be associated with the additional options. This is the most important part of this engagement process is we would like to hear your feedback. So please take the time to fill out the surveys so that we can gather the information and share it with our Board of Education as well as the superintendent. So on October 30th of 2025, the Board of Education passed a resolution directing the staff to develop additional options for the Crown boundary study, including scenarios in which Crown High School could potentially serve as a holding school. The additional options we are presenting tonight are based on that resolution. These options include scenarios where Crown would be used as a holding school, either fully as a holding school or in combination with serving neighborhood students. In these variations, Crown could temporarily house students from schools undergoing construction or operate in a hybrid capacity where it both serves the Crown area neighborhoods as well as students from other schools undergoing construction as a temporary space. The goal of these scenarios is to support upcoming construction needs while ensuring long-term and efficient use of the facility. We also examined other ways Crown could operate as a comprehensive high school. One of the options that you're going to see tonight, in that option, Crown would enroll students from the Crown neighborhood as well as students currently attending Wooten High School. All of these options were developed in response to the board's request that we analyze different ways Crown could address enrollment distribution across the area. And it also reflects community feedback encouraging us to explore broader and long-term solutions. So these options are in addition to the options A through D that are already available on our website. We will, as I already mentioned about the survey is going to be open till January 9th. So we're definitely looking for the feedback from everybody. So please continue to, learn the resources, and I'm going to pass it over for the presentation very shortly. But please remember to fill out the survey. And I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Malchodi, who's the Executive Director for District Operations. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Kat Malchodi. Welcome. Thank you for being here. As Mr. Mamoon said, we're going to be doing the presentation part. It's a shorter presentation here. The map room space is available the entire time. So if you've already heard the presentation or you're listening for a little bit and you'd like to go look at the larger maps and look at the resources, you are welcome to do so. We're recording them and we'll be posting them online for everyone, and we'll run this one at 6:30 and then the second one at 7:30. So you can be comfortable here, but if you came to really go talk about the maps and look at them, we are very happy to offer that for you for the whole time we're here. Okay. So we are in our December phase of this boundary study timeline. At these public information sessions, we're sharing the additional options E through H for the Crown-Damascus boundary study. And like Mr. Mamoon said, you're going to have the opportunity to give us feedback. These options that are here tonight, E through H, were developed based on the Board of Education's resolution to amend the scope of the boundary study, and that resolution was adopted on October 30th. It is posted on our Google webpage if you want to take a look at it. And as Mr. Mamoon said, your feedback that we're collecting from these options will be synthesized along with the feedback that we've been collecting since options A through D were released in the beginning of October. And all of that will be used to support the option development for the superintendent's recommendation to the board. And so, as you can see, the superintendent will make his recommendation to the board at the end of February, or beginning of February, I'm sorry. And then at the end of March, the board will vote on the options. And so from the beginning of February to almost the end of March, the board will have opportunities for work sessions and public hearings so that they can hear from you about the options. And they will make their decision, I think it's March 26, 2026. And then the implementation process will begin with the 27-28 school year. And so if you grabbed a packet, you'll see that these are the middle schools and high schools in the boundary study scope. And just as a reminder, there are not elementary schools included in this boundary study scope, but the assigned middle schools and high schools for those elementary schools can change with the boundary assignments. And just for anyone who wasn't aware, a future elementary school boundary study has been proposed after this boundary study is completed. And so there'll be more information about that forthcoming as that progress sort of goes through. So we're recording this. I'm sorry. So the questions can go over to the map area. We're recording this for. Okay. The boundary study process is guided by Board Policy FAA, Educational Facilities Planning. The 4 factors outlined in this policy will be considered when recommendations for the boundary options are developed. And these 4 factors are demographic characteristics of student population, geography, stability of school assignment over time, and facility utilization. And there's no weighting or priority for the 4 factors when determining boundary options. But when developing recommendations to the board, the superintendent will provide a rationale for each recommendation that demonstrates the extent to which each of the recommendations advances any of the 4 factors. And while each factor is considered, it may not be feasible to reconcile each and every recommendation with each and every factor. And then throughout the process, community engagement is sought in accordance with Board Policy ABA, community engagement. Okay. So according to Board Policy FAA, educational facilities planning, school boundary assignments should, unless otherwise required, take into account the geographic proximity of communities to schools, as well as articulation, traffic, transportation patterns, and topography. And in addition, the option should consider at a minimum not only schools within a high school cluster, but also adjacent schools. So as you can see, this is a little bit of the overview for option E. If you have your packet, there's a lot more information about option E, and the interactive map tool, which is available in the cafeteria area, also has that open if you want to use that map to look at some of the options as well. In terms of facility utilization, Board Policy FAA, which is Educational Facilities Planning, says that school boundary assignment plans should result in facility utilization in the 80 to 100% efficient range over the long term whenever possible. And so in option E, you can see the high schools and middle schools in the boundary study scope that fall within, above, or below the 80 to 100% efficient facility utilization range. Okay. And then according to board policy FAA for educational facilities planning, the boundary assignments should especially strive to create a diverse student body in each of the affected schools in alignment with board policy ACD, which is quality integrated education. Demographic data showing the impact of the various options include the following: racial and ethnic composition of student population, socioeconomic composition of student population, the level of English language learners, and other reliable demographic indicators and participation in specific educational programs. In option E, you can see where the percentage of resident students decreases, increases, or remains the same for those students who participate in the free and reduced price meal program, or FARMS, and those identified as emergent multilingual learners, or EML. The option E data tables also include demographic information, and you have those in your packet, by race and ethnicity, and that is defined by MCPS at a glance and self-reported by families. And then for option E, this is the high school overview map. There is a smaller version available at the tables in the cafeteria area, as well as a larger scale version, and they're available on the webpage. And then this is the middle school overview map for option E, and a large scale version of this map is also available on the website and over at the tables if you want to take a look at it. The large scale one, you can enlarge it and look at much smaller areas of it than the one you see on the screen. And all of that is available for you online. Okay, so for each of the options, we're going to run through similar related to the factors. And so I'm going to switch now to option E. You have that in your packet as well. So if you want to follow along, you can. And again, when anyone feels like they want to join the map room area, you're more than welcome to as well. Okay, so this is option F. And then according to board policy FAA, educational facilities planning, the school boundary assignments should, unless otherwise required, take into account the geographic proximity of communities to schools, as well as articulation, traffic, transportation patterns, and topography. And in addition, the option should consider, at a minimum, not only schools within a high school cluster, but also other adjacent schools. And that also shows you the program regions for 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so for facility utilization for option F, you can see, and board policy FAA, educational facilities planning, says that the school boundary plan should result in facility utilization in the 80% to 100% efficient range over the long term whenever possible. So for option F, you can see which middle schools and high schools in this boundary study scope fall within, below, or above the 80% efficient facility utilization range. Okay, and then according to board policy FAA educational facilities planning, the boundary assignments should especially strive to create a diverse student body in each of the affected schools in alignment with board policy ACD, quality integrated education. Demographic data showing the impact of various options include the following: racial and ethnic composition of student population, the socioeconomic composition of student population, the level of English language learners, and other reliable demographic indicators and participation in specific educational programs. In option F, you can see where the percent of resident students decreases, increases, or remains the same for those students who participate in the free and reduced price meal program, or FARMS, and those identified as emergent multilingual learners, or EML. The option F data tables, which you have in your packet, also include demographic data by race and ethnicity, as defined in MCPS at a glance and self-reported by families. And then for option F, this is the high school overview map. And again, the large scale version of this map and this version are available at the tables as well as on the webpage. and it shows you the boundary assignments for the option for each high school in the scope for F, as well as the middle school overview map, which shows you the middle school assignments for the middle schools in the boundary study scope for each of the options. And so this is the middle school for option F. And then I'm going to switch and start talking about option G and then H. Okay, so for option G, according to board policy FAA, educational facilities planning, the school boundary assignment plan should, unless otherwise required, take into account the geographic proximity of communities to schools, as well as articulation, traffic, transportation patterns, and topography. In addition, options should consider, at a minimum, not only schools within a high school cluster, but also other adjacent schools. And here are some of the highlights for option G. Okay. According to board policy FAA, educational facilities planning, the school boundary assignment plans should result in facility utilization in the 80% to 100% efficient range over the long term whenever possible. And so in option G, you can see the middle schools and high schools in the boundary study scope that fall within, above, or below the 80 to 100% efficient range. For option G. And then for demographic characteristics of student population, and this is also available in your packet, according to board policy FAA, educational facilities planning, school boundary assignments should especially strive to create a diverse student body in each of the affected schools in alignment with board policy ACD, which is quality integrated education. The demographic data showing the impact of various options include the following: racial and ethnic composition of student population, the socioeconomic composition of student population, the level of English language learners, and other reliable demographic indicators, and participation in specific educational programs. And in option G, you can see where the percentage of resident students decreases, increases, or remains the same for those students who participate in free and reduced price meal program or FARMs, and those identified as emergent multilingual learners, or EML. And the option G data tables, which are in your packet and available at the tables and online, also include demographic data by race and ethnicity, as defined in MCPS at a glance and self-reported by families. And this is the option G high school overview map. And again, the larger scale versions of these maps are available at the tables as well as online. This is the middle school overview map for option G. And the large scale version of this map is also available at the tables and online. Okay, so then the last one I'm going to do is talk about H. We'll talk a little bit about how to access the resources, and then we will move over to the tables so that you can ask questions. Okay, option H shows an alternative use of Crown High School. So according to board policy FAA, educational facilities planning, the school boundary assignments should, unless otherwise required, take into account the geographic proximity of communities to schools, as well as articulation, traffic, transportation patterns, and topography. In addition, the options should consider, at a minimum, not only schools within a high school cluster, but also other adjacent schools. And so here are some of the highlights of option H, sorry. And then for facility utilization, according to board policy FAA, educational facilities planning, school boundary assignments should result in facility utilization in the 80% to 100% efficient range over the long term whenever possible. And for option H, you can see the middle school and high schools in the boundary study scope that fall within, above, or below the 80 to 100% efficient range. And then for demographic characteristics of student population, according to board policy FAA, educational facilities planning, school boundary assignment plan should especially strive to create a diverse student body in each of the affected schools in alignment with board policy ACD, quality integrated education. And the demographic data showing the impact of various options include the following: racial and ethnic composition of student population, the socioeconomic composition of student population, the level of English language learners, and other reliable demographic indicators and participation in specific educational programs. In option H, you can see the percentage of resident students increasing, decreasing, or remaining the same for the students who participate in the free and reduced price meal programs, or FARMs, and those identified as emergent multilingual learners, or EML. And the option H data tables also include the demographic data by race and ethnicity, as defined in MCPS at a glance, and self-reported by families. And then this is the high school overview map for option H. And again, the large-scale versions are available at the tables as well as online. This is the middle school overview map for option H, and the large-scale version of this map is also available at the tables and online. And so I'm just going to take a minute to talk a little bit about the digital resources if you haven't had the chance to look at them. And again, we have a smartboard set up for you if you want to look at them, as well as most of the resources available. And the options webpage has the digital resources for A through D, as well as E through H. And it includes that interactive map tool, the data tables, the articulation charts, and various maps. Your packets have the articulation charts and the demographic data and the QR code on the front, and the bit.ly will take you right to the webpage so you can access everything. And then just a little bit about the interactive map tool. It looks a little different now because it allows you to look at the boundary assignments for not only for options A through D, but also for E, F, G, and H. And so I just wanted you to see a screenshot so you could see what that looks like when you go onto the map to see that. And you can click on an area and pull up the map, and you can also type in your address and have the same. And so that is available online, and there is a smartboard set up over there with that. And then finally, like Mr. Mamoon said, please take time to fill out the survey. You'll have time to do it. It's open until January 9th, 2026. And we are excited to get your feedback and, thankful for you for coming to participate in this event. And we're hoping that everyone takes advantage of the map room area so that they can ask questions and see the resources up in person. So we're going to reset and move over there, and then we'll come back again at 7:30.